Lagos, Nigeria, a city where ambitions are tested daily, and dreams either flourish or are shattered. Chijioke Okafor was one of those dreamers, a hardworking financial analyst at Zenith Capital Group, one of Nigeria's top investment firms. At 32, CJ was building a promising career and had a mentor in his boss, Richard Onojide, a man he respected and admired for his sharp business acumen and success. Outside the office, CJ's life seemed just as fulfilling. He was married to Adaora, a rising star in Lagos's vibrant fashion industry. Adaora was known for her creativity and bold designs, making her a sought-after designer in a competitive market. Together, they appeared to have it all: a loving marriage, promising careers, and a comfortable life in the upscale neighborhood of Lekki. Friends envied them, social media followers admired them, and their families were proud. To everyone around them, they were the perfect couple. But CJ had begun to sense that something was off. He couldn't put his finger on it at first. Perhaps it was the way Adaora seemed more distracted lately, or how she always seemed to be on her phone, texting with an intensity that made him feel like an intruder whenever he asked who it was. Her replies were always vague and dismissive. "Just clients, Chi," she would say, her eyes never leaving the screen. "You know how demanding they can be." CJ would nod, forcing a smile, trying to brush off the unsettling feeling growing in his chest. But he couldn't shake the sense that Adaora was hiding something. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly: Adaora staying late after fashion shows, often citing last-minute meetings or emergencies with clients. She had always been dedicated to her work, but lately, it seemed like she was drifting away, lost in a world CJ wasn't part of. Their conversations became shorter, her laughter less frequent, and their intimate moments felt rehearsed and hollow. One night, after a long day at the office, CJ came home to an empty house. Adaora hadn't mentioned any plans to be out that evening, and when he called her, his calls went unanswered. His anxiety grew as he waited, pacing the elegantly furnished living room of their home. Hours later, Adaora walked through the door, looking startled to see him still awake. Her explanation was hurried, something about a last-minute dinner with a client, and she headed straight to bed. Lying beside her that night, CJ couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, his mind racing with possibilities. Was Adaora in trouble? Was it something to do with her business? Or was there someone else? The thought gnawed at him, eating away at his trust and peace. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between them seemed to widen. Adaora's behavior grew more erratic. She was often on her phone late into the night, whispering conversations that ended abruptly when CJ entered the room. Whenever he asked about it, she would snap at him: "Chi, please. I'm just stressed. Can't you see that?" CJ would retreat, feeling like he was overreacting, but deep down, he knew something wasn't right. The breaking point came one Saturday afternoon. CJ was doing some cleaning around the house when he stumbled upon Adaora's phone on the kitchen counter. Normally, he respected her privacy, but something compelled him to look. She had left it unlocked, and curiosity got the better of him. As he swiped through her messages, a particular thread caught his eye: a conversation with a contact named Amanda. CJ's brows furrowed. The messages seemed harmless at first, but as he scrolled further, he noticed the tone changing: intimate, personal, and filled with inside jokes. One message, in particular, sent a chill down his spine: "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to do it again." He felt his chest tighten, his mind spinning. Who was Amanda? He knew Adaora's friends, and none went by that name. He continued reading, his heart pounding. The conversation continued with mentions of secret meetups and plans that didn't align with anything Adaora had told him. It didn't take long for him to realize that Amanda wasn't a woman, it was a cover for someone else, someone Adaora was hiding. CJ's hands trembled as he pieced it together. Could Adaora be having an affair? His mind raced with disbelief and anger. He scrolled through more messages, and that's when he saw it: a photo attachment with the message: "You look beautiful every passing day." With a trembling finger, he opened it. His blood ran cold. It was a picture of Adaora, laughing at an upscale restaurant. He wonders who was at the end of the table that took the photo. CJ's world tilted on its axis. The ground he thought was solid was suddenly unstable and shifting. He quickly took screenshots of the messages and photos, sending them to his phone as proof. He knew that if he confronted her now, she might try to delete them or deny everything. He needed concrete evidence. CJ knew he couldn't confront Adaora just yet. He needed more information, something concrete that would confirm or disprove his fears beyond any doubt. Over the next few days, he became more vigilant. He started checking Adaora's phone more frequently, noting the times and places mentioned in her messages. CJ decided to follow Adaora discreetly. He became a ghost in his own marriage, slipping into the background to observe without being seen. One evening, Adaora claimed she was meeting a client for dinner. CJ, under the guise of working late at the office, decided to follow her. His heart pounded as he watched her drive out of their Lekki home, and he tailed her car at a safe distance, careful not to be seen. He followed her to an upscale restaurant on Victoria Island, a place renowned for its privacy and discretion, perfect for secret meetings. CJ parked his car in the shadows, his heart pounding as he watched Adaora step out of her car. She glanced around nervously before making her way inside, her eyes darting as if checking to see if anyone was watching. CJ's mind raced with possibilities, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened next. Moments later, his heart nearly stopped as he saw Richard Onojide, his boss, walk into the restaurant. Richard moved confidently to where Adaora was waiting for him, his hand casually resting on the small of Adaora's back as they were led to a secluded corner. CJ's breath caught in his throat. His blood ran cold as the reality of what he was seeing hit him like a punch to the gut. His wife, his Adaora, was having an affair with his boss. A wave of shock and betrayal washed over him, leaving him frozen in place, his mind struggling to process the devastating truth unfolding before his eyes. CJ felt a wave of nausea wash over him. He watched them through the window, their faces lit by candlelight. They leaned in close, laughing, talking, sharing a level of intimacy that left CJ feeling like an intruder in his own life. He took out his phone and snapped several pictures of them together, knowing he needed this evidence for when the time came. CJ waited outside for what felt like hours, his mind swirling with anger, hurt, and confusion. When they finally emerged, Richard's hand lingered on Adaora's arm before they parted ways. Adaora looked around cautiously before getting into her car. CJ's hands clenched around the steering wheel, his knuckles white with tension. He watched Richard drive off in the opposite direction before following Adaora home. The drive back was silent, the tension palpable. When Adaora walked through the door, she was startled to see CJ sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. "You're home early," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "Yeah, I decided to wrap up early," CJ replied, his tone cold. He couldn't hold it in any longer. "How was your client dinner?" Adaora's face tightened, her eyes narrowing. "It was fine. Just a bit tiring." CJ nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving her. "I see. And how's Amanda?" The color drained from Adaora's face. She stammered, What do you mean?" CJ stood up, his face hardening with anger. "Amanda," he repeated, his voice rising with restrained fury. "The one who said last night was amazing. The one who's been making secret plans with you. Or should I say, Richard?" Adaora's eyes widened, and she tried to maintain her composure. "Chi, I don't know what you're talking about. You're getting things all wrong." But CJ had enough. He pulled out his phone and opened the gallery, displaying the screenshots of the messages and photos. "Really? Then explain this," he said, his voice calm but laced with bitterness. He scrolled through the screenshots and then to the pictures he took of them at the restaurant. "You want to deny it now?" Adaora's face crumpled, and she realized she had no escape. She sank into a chair, tears flowing freely now, her shoulders shaking. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she whispered. "I swear, Chi, I didn't want you to find out this way. I can explain." CJ cut her off. "Explain what?" "That you've been lying to me. That you've been sneaking around with my boss behind my back. How long, Adaora? How long has this been going on? CJ felt a surge of anger, his patience wearing thin. Stop with the excuses, Adaora. How long have you been seeing him? Adaora took a deep breath, her face pale and her eyes red and swollen. She looked like she was grappling with whether to continue. It's been, for years, she finally admitted, her voice breaking. Richard and I, we have a history. He was my first love, back when we were both in university. We were together for a long time before he left the country to study abroad. When he came back years later, I had already met you, and he seemed like a chapter I'd closed. I never mentioned it because I didn't think it mattered anymore. CJ's eyes widened in disbelief. So, you're telling me, my boss, Richard, was your first lover? And you've been seeing him, what, since he came back? This whole time, you've been sneaking around behind my back. Adaora nodded, her face crumpling as she cried. It started again 5 years ago after one of your office events. We ran into each other, and it just happened. I know it sounds horrible, but the connection was still there, and I didn't know how to resist. I kept telling myself it would stop, but it didn't. It got deeper. CJ was speechless, his world crashing around him. He felt a dizzying mix of rage, betrayal, and disbelief. The woman he loved, the life they had built together, all of it felt tainted, twisted by a hidden past he never knew existed. A connection. CJ echoed, his voice rising, almost trembling with fury. With my boss? The man who I've trusted and looked up to. And you've been lying to me for years. Adaora nodded miserably. I know I betrayed you, CJ. I know I've hurt you. I felt so trapped, feeling like I was living 2 lives. I didn't want to lose you, but Richard, he made me feel like I was reliving a part of myself that I thought I'd lost. I was confused, and I let things go too far. CJ's heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the woman he thought he knew, realizing that everything, his marriage, his career, his very life, was built on lies he had been too blind to see. The next morning, CJ woke up feeling numb, like he was moving through a fog. He knew what he had to do. He drove to the Zenith Capital office, his mind focused on confronting Richard. When he arrived, he didn't bother with pleasantries. He marched straight to Richard's office and threw the door open. Richard looked up from his desk, his expression turning from surprise to calm amusement. CJ, what a surprise. What brings you here so early? CJ's eyes burned with anger. Cut the crap, Richard. I know about you and Adaora. Richard's face didn't falter, if anything, he seemed prepared. Look, CJ, he began, leaning back in his chair, I'm not going to pretend this isn't what it is. It happened. We didn't plan it. CJ cut him off. You didn't plan it. You've been sleeping with my wife for years, and you didn't plan it. Richard sighed, putting on an air of regret. CJ, you know how these things go. Emotions get complicated. Adaora and I, we connected. I'm sorry if you feel betrayed, but it wasn't meant to hurt you. CJ felt his blood boiling. You think I care about your feelings? You've been lying to me, both of you. And now you expect me just to roll over and take it. Richard leaned forward, his demeanor shifting to something more businesslike. CJ, let's not make this messier than it needs to be. You're good at what you do. I've always respected you. Let's handle this like men. I'm willing to make it worth your while. A promotion, a raise, whatever you need. CJ stared at him in disbelief. You think you can buy me off? You think you can fix this with money or some damn promotion? You ruined my marriage, Richard. You don't get to sweep this under the rug. Richard's face hardened. I'm offering you a way to keep your career intact, CJ. You have to be practical. CJ shook his head. No. I'm done. I quit. With that, he turned and walked out of Richard's office, leaving behind the career he had built over the years. He couldn't stomach the idea of working for a man who had betrayed him so deeply. Back at home, Adaora was waiting for him, her eyes swollen from crying. CJ, please, she pleaded, I'm so sorry. I'm ready to end things with Richard. I don't want to lose you. Please, can we work through this? CJ stood there, staring at her, feeling a mix of love, anger, and a sense of betrayal so deep it cut to his core. I don't know, Adaora, he finally said, his voice hollow. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. She reached out to him, but he stepped back. I need time, he said quietly. I need to figure out what's next for me, for us, if there's even an us anymore. That night, CJ packed a suitcase, deciding he needed to leave Lagos for a while, to clear his head and figure out his next move. Adaora stood at the doorway, tears streaming down her face as he left, unsure if he would ever return. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the experience, please like, share, and subscribe for more compelling stories. Your support means the world to us. See you next time.